Before we get started with this video, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Adam Newblum, and I am the owner of the Enhanced Driving Institute. Now, my experience with winter driving goes way back to the early 90s. I've been driving in snowy conditions since I was 15 years old. So a lot of the things that you're going to see in this video are based off experience, my understanding of traction laws, coefficient of friction, understanding my vehicle, and then of course understanding the road conditions and the environment that I'm driving within. So as you learn to drive in winter driving conditions, you will take things slow. It's going to take a while to adapt to these conditions and what it feels like to have loss of control. When my tires slip, I don't panic. I can understand what's happening and I make the maneuver that I need to make in order to avoid further problems. For you, it might be a little bit different. So take things slow. Look at this as an opportunity to understand what your goals are when it comes to winter driving. The goal is to be comfortable with snow-covered roads. The goal is to be comfortable with slight loss of traction, with maybe a slight oversteer situation or an understeer situation, and knowing what to do when those things happen. I would also like to share the characteristics of the vehicle I'm driving, which is much different than something you might typically be driving and even something I typically drive. I'm driving a 2015 Ram ProMaster van. Now, I converted this van into a camper, and I use this. I've driven across the country. I've got 40,000 miles on it in just a couple years. This is my first time driving this vehicle in snowy conditions. It is a front-wheel drive vehicle. It is fairly loaded down with the conversion of the camper. But on an added note, I am towing a 2012 Honda Civic on a tow dolly. This is an interesting vehicle in itself to drive. Factor in towing a vehicle behind it, and then of course dealing with adverse conditions. Although this configuration might be a little bit unique for this situation, this training isn't about towing a vehicle in the snow or driving a large van in the snow. These tips are universal, regardless of your drivetrain, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive, maybe four-wheel drive. So please keep that in mind as we proceed. Now, one thing I would also like to make note of is I do have fairly good tires on this van. They are the original tires. However, I do take very good care of my vehicles and I rotate the tires frequently. I would say these tires that are about 75% of new, and they're an all-season tire, nothing special, but they seem to handle pretty well in these conditions. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the video. Before we get too far in, I want to explain where I'm at, just to give you an idea on why I'm dealing with the weather I'm dealing with. I was driving from Tennessee back to Minnesota, and I had rain most of the drive. When I hit the Madison, Wisconsin area, the rain started to turn to sleet. When I got to Wisconsin Dells, sleet turned to snow, and the roads began to pile up. The snow was heavy at times, light at times, but it had gone through enough to cover the roads, creating grooves and slush piles and snow piles. Visibility was okay. Traffic conditions were moderate in some areas, light in others. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, as you can see, we're starting to approach some slower traffic. Now, the best time to make a lane change in conditions like this is on a curve, actually, because you can really keep your vehicle nice and straight while you're changing into the other lane. Okay, notice how I don't have to turn my wheels. I just use the curve itself to allow me to change lanes. Okay. Now, anytime I'm passing cars, I don't want to put them at risk, right? So I'm going to take my time. I'm going to give myself plenty of space. Keep that wheel nice and straight here. I got a little bit of a curve coming up. No worries, because we're going to take it nice and slow. Barely turn the wheel, just enough to keep that car in your lane. Now you can see this side of the road isn't cleared out as nice as the other side. Obviously it's because most people are driving in the normal driving right lane. That doesn't mean this lane is unsafe, but we definitely have to be extra careful because that could be black ice on the right side, correct? Maybe we're just driving on snow here, which is more safe than driving on black ice. In my opinion, neither of these lanes are really good conditions, so I'm just going to take my time and be nice and easy in both lanes. Now these other drivers here aren't necessarily driving slow, excessively slow, right? They're probably doing about 40 miles per hour, which is a safe speed here. You should drive within your comfort level. And if there's two lanes, it's okay to drive a little bit slower in one of them. We are passing, so we're taking our time. We're minimizing our risk to ourselves and other drivers. Now ideally I want to try to get back to that right lane because I don't want to just consistently drive in the passing lane, correct? So I'm surveying the situation. How are the conditions? How do they look? Is there a snow pile or slush in the middle of the lane that's going to cause my wheels to go off center? That's what I'm watching for. It looks like it's okay here. I could probably do a lane change. There's a little bit of pile up now, so I'm going to wait just a minute here. Now this lane actually doesn't look too bad. It is covered in snow. I can't really see the black of the pavement, but there are no piles of slush to work with. So cars' tires haven't pushed and made grooves into this snow pile yet. So actually I feel pretty good here. I don't feel too much slippage going on. Now here would be an opportunity to do a lane change because I'm making a curve to the left, right? I could easily slide over, but it's on a bridge and I want to be extra careful there. And I've checked my mirrors and there really isn't anyone behind me, so I'm really not too concerned about leaving this lane in a hurry. Plus I see another vehicle approaching. I'm going a little bit faster than them. So if I can minimize the need to change lanes, I might as well do that. So I'm speeding up just a little bit. We are going up a hill. Now going uphill is far more safe in low traction situations than going downhill, because if I let off my gas pedal, I can slow my vehicle down very quickly because gravity is pulling me back. When I'm going downhill, I have gravity working against me, and if I let off my gas, I'm not going to slow down as much, so I'm going to have to use my brakes. Brakes are not our preferred choice of slowing our vehicle down when conditions are bad. Once again, both lanes look fairly comparable. I could change lanes again, but I'm not really in too big of a hurry at this point. You can see this vehicle ahead is slowing down. He sees someone with hazard lights up ahead. That's good planning. The person with hazard lights, they're just making a choice to let people know that, you know, they're going a little bit slower, and I can see a little bit more traffic going slower up ahead here. This video will cut in and out based off traffic situations and how the driving environment has changed. Keep in mind while I'm narrating the video that my attention is on driving and the narration is secondary. So I will chime in periodically to cover up some long periods of silence or maybe some things that were said that didn't really make sense, just for clarification. Okay, I'm getting to the point where these cars are kind of back and forth with speed, so I would like to try to get by them. So I'm going to look for an opportunity here, but obviously we have a bridge here, and then we have an on-ramp coming up. Then I've got a vehicle, which looks like he's going to try to pass me. Alright, we're going to back off these cars just a hair. I'd like to take an opportunity to change lanes now. Yes, alright. Now my traction control kicked on trying to get through that slush, which is something you gotta watch for, because that means one of the tires is not getting the traction that it wants. So it will send power to the other wheel or minimize power to the slipping wheel, which can kind of throw you off a little bit. So I typically don't like my traction control turning on like that. But we were able to get through that little slush pile with fairly easily, because we took it nice and slow and I minimized turning of the wheel. Now we can get back up to speed and get by some traffic. That van, he just kind of plowed his way right through. He saw a back end fishtail just a little bit. You got to be extra careful with that. That is a front wheel drive vehicle, so it does tend to pull out of those a little bit easier. Let's see if he tries a lane change here. I'm going to slow down and back off a little bit. Alright, he did pretty good there. Took the time. This is probably an experienced winter driver. They don't seem too concerned about making lane changes in slushy conditions. It's nice to see other drivers like this on the road, experienced winter drivers. This driver is not excessively speeding, nor are we. This just goes to show you that we don't have to go 20 miles per hour just because there is snow on the road. Planning ahead, using active driving, preparing for lane changes or potential slowdowns, that's what winter driving is about. I'm going to speed up a little bit here. The roads, you can tell that they're clearing off a little bit more, better than they were anyway. Plus I have a vehicle behind me who's probably looking to pass me, but I want to minimize the need for changing lanes if I can, so I'm going to try to get by this truck first. Now large trucks have one advantage in weather like this is weight, and the more weight you have on the road, the easier it is to maintain a firm grasp on the road. Light cars or trucks with no weight in the back tend to slide very easily in conditions like this. So we have to be a little careful when we're driving around those vehicles or when they're driving around us. Here with all the traffic, the lines that we're trying to drive on the tread marks change quite a bit because you have different vehicles in different spots, and then some change lanes, some don't. So even though we're trying to keep a straight path, we sometimes lose that better traction because of that. So we'll just do our best here. Very little change in steering wheel direction. Thinking about trying to get back to that right lane again. Now notice how I say I'm thinking about it, because this is just something you really want to plan ahead. You don't just want to all of a sudden decide, oh, I'm going to change lanes. Once I've made the decision that I should start looking at changing lanes here, then I can look for an opportunity to do that as safely as possible. And this guy's going to do his lane change. I really don't feel the need to get in front of this driver because he does seem to be going at the speed that I am probably comfortable at. But now he seems to be slowing down. Maybe his exit is coming up. So we're going to just slowly squeeze by this guy. Oh, I see a little bit of sliding there. I don't know if you saw that in the video. When that car behind me starts to slide a little bit, I can feel it up here in the van, in the cab. Just gonna take it nice and slow here. Now, a lot of people might be looking at my vehicle thinking, whoa, why is that guy going 60 miles per hour? You know, not understanding the dynamic of the van and the trailer. And to them, it just looks like a lot to be managing in this type of condition. And probably for the average driver, it would be. I feel very safe with my ability and my ability to tell, you know, when the wheels don't have traction. So even a mild slide, I can feel, and I'm already seeking an opportunity to correct before it gets out of control. So I've had a couple of times where I can feel the car toss a little bit, or the car behind me starts to pull on my rear hitch. And I feel that, and I respond appropriately to minimize that, you know, from turning into something bigger. Does that mean my risk of losing control of this van is zero? No. It's still there, and I'm still clutching the wheel a little tighter than I normally would. And my focus on the road ahead of me is far more than probably a normal day. So you have to recognize that there's still a risk there, even with competent skills. Now I do want to switch over to the other lane, so I'm going to take this nice and slow. Looks like there's kind of an opportunity up here. You can see where a car maybe did a lane change. I'm going to follow those tracks. Nice and easy. Nice and easy. There we go. That one was a little bit nerve-wracking because I felt the back of the car slide a little bit. Those tire tracks that I chose were old ones, so a little bit of slush had built up in the meantime. But we took our time, we got through it. This guy changing lanes, some people just change when they want to change. They're not technically thinking about the corners or tread lines or anything like that. They just want to change lanes, and they do take a higher risk by doing that. Now, if you saw what I did with the van as that vehicle was passing on the left, I slowed down and I was very cautious around that vehicle. There are certain drivers you can kind of tell if they are just a fast driver or they are a skilled driver. And the way that driver came through the slush and then did that lane changeover, to me, I would assume that they are not as skilled of a driver making choices like that. So give yourself a little extra space when you run into drivers that you might question a little bit, because you might have to make a quick decision. Okay, we've got a little bit more traffic up ahead here. We're going to want to try to change our lanes here because we've got some slower traffic, but I do have a car coming up on the left. Actually, everybody's slowing down. Whoa, 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 whoa. Come on. There we go. Boy, the roads are extremely icy. As soon as I just tapped my brakes, the anti-lock brakes kicked in right away. This information is extremely valuable to me as a driver. Not only does it help me plan my stops and maneuvers, but I can also use a bit more precision when it comes to lane changes and or dealing with other traffic. Using brakes as a tool to test the icy conditions is a smart move. But it gives you a good idea because we've been able to maintain a 60-mile-an-hour speed when the road itself is not ice, but it's definitely not far from it. It's because we maintain our momentum and we're not changing direction quickly. So if you're driving it's kind of like running on an ice rink. If you're running really fast on an ice rink, you can run without falling until you try to stop or change direction. That's when you run the risk of losing control. It's no different when you're driving. Now, when you're dealing with other traffic, there's a higher risk of having to make an evasive maneuver, because say the cars in front of me slam on their brakes, well, what am I going to do? I can't keep going straight, so I'm either going to have to try to turn or try to stop, and that's where the risk of an accident goes up. So if I maintain a good distance from the vehicles in front of me, that gives me more time to make that maneuver as needed. So our speed is dropped down to about 50 miles per hour, which still isn't too bad for these conditions. But you'll see the car in front of me, this blue vehicle in front of me, is literally 15 feet off the bumper of the car in front of him. Now that's not even enough for reaction time to take place. So I think there's just a lot of misconceptions on traffic or traction laws, and just a misunderstanding of how your vehicle responds, like what it needs. So people will slam on their brakes and they'll run into a car in front of them, and their excuse is, well, the weather was bad. You know, the roads were ice, and everyone's like, oh yeah, icy roads, that's why that happened. And the accountability doesn't fall on them for following too close, not giving themselves enough stopping distance or distance to make a maneuver to avoid an accident. So that's what we want to be doing different. I want to make sure I've got plenty of room here, so that if, say, that blue car in front of me slides out of control, right? Say he turns sideways and starts sliding, I've got enough room to slow my car down, to stop it, or to change lanes safely without running into him. If you've been watching the blue vehicle in front of us, you can see they are frequently hitting their brakes. Their brake lights are coming on. Now, normal highway driving says we should minimize brake usage. If we're following a safe distance between us and the car in front of us, we can just let off our gas pedal, and that will slow us down enough to increase the gap between us and other traffic. Using your brakes on the highway basically has a ripple effect. When people see brake lights, they tend to hit their own brakes, and what that does is it causes brake light, brake light, brake light, brake light, causing everybody to slow down unnecessarily. Now, in conditions like this, there's no excuse to be following somebody as close as this car is following the car in front of them. Now, if you're in a situation where you are being followed too close, your best bet is to change lanes and let them pass. I know it can be frustrating at times when you have drivers like this, but it's important for you to get out of their way, because the last thing you want to do is deal with the consequence of their mistake. Now up ahead here, we're going to be running into a little bit more traffic. Looks like a snowplow. You might not be able to see that yet, but there's a snowplow. You can see their flashing lights up ahead. They appear to be in this particular lane. We definitely do not want to underestimate the risk of driving around snowplows. They can weigh up to 50,000 pounds. They're out there doing their job. We need to make sure we give them plenty of space. Now, a lot of times people will assume you cannot pass a snowplow, and that is not the case. Use caution, of course, if you go around a snowplow. But they're going a certain speed because they have a job to do. They're not going a certain speed because of the conditions. So we want to make sure we're giving them plenty of space. You can see people are slowly passing this snowplow. Nobody's in a huge hurry. So we're going to sneak in front of this silver car so we can get into the right lane so we can pass this snowplow safely. Now here we have to do our lane change. My feet see a great spot. You can see where there's a little bit of black. That means there's not going to be a lot of slush there. Keep my wheels nice and straight. There we go. Smooth as silk. Now space management here, right? Normally we would have 3 seconds, 1,000, 1,000. Right now we're at about 3 seconds. I'm going to let off my gas here and just coast a little bit to try to create a little bit more space. This guy is slowing down quite a bit because of the snow plow, which is okay, but it does increase the risk to other drivers. Okay, we got by our snowplow. Traffic is now speeding up a little bit more, which is good. So as I said, we can pass. You see we passed. Everyone did a great job there of moving over, and traffic is back up to a fairly safe speed at this point. Now there's a big difference between seasoned drivers, meaning they're seasoned, they've been driving in snowy conditions for a long time, many, many years, and you can see that in their driving abilities, versus the driver who is very foreign to slippery surfaces. They are extra hesitant, they drive a lot more slow, they don't have the confidence to make maneuvers like changing lanes, so they will drive considerably slow in one lane and not pass someone. So all of that is based off experience. So if you're a new driver and you're driving in snowy conditions like this and you feel uncomfortable, find a safe speed with the flow of traffic, stay in your lane, don't try to leave your lane. If you can find a different route home or pull over to the side and just wait a couple hours till the snow dies and the plows come through and sand and salt everything, that would be ideal as well. I have been driving in the snow since I was 15 years old, and certain vehicles I feel more comfortable in than others. Driving a big van like this, front wheel drive, it is heavy, but it's not extremely heavy. And towing a car behind me on a tow dolly, so meaning it's got 4 wheels on the ground, 2 for the dolly and 2 for the car, I feel fairly safe because we've got a decent amount of weight and there is, 8 tires touching the road. However, that hinge point is the one concern. So as I said before, when you change lanes, driving through slushier situations, you just have to be a little extra careful. So we're coming up on this vehicle and I would like to get into the other lane. It is a straight road right now. We don't have our curve technique to use. I don't really see any opportunity to do an easy lane change yet. So I'm going to just hold off a little bit here. I don't see any vehicles behind me. And I did just see a car pass through, so he left me a couple tracks. So I'm going to take advantage of his tire marks where he cuts the slush. And I'm going to use that to get over to this lane. You see how easy that is? Here's an example. If I wanted to get back to the right lane, I see some cut marks. They've already cut through that slush. It'll minimize the issue my tires have to go through to break through that little slush pile in the middle. Now here we're dealing with traffic, right? We're passing another vehicle. We're going to take our time. I'm keeping that wheel straight. If I feel any type of slippage, if I feel that car start to slide a little bit, I'm going to let off that gas nice and slow, keep that wheel straight. I'm not going to panic or overreact. Notice our space management, keeping plenty of space between me and the car in front of us. In case they start to slide out of control, I do not want to hit them. That car is going to go back again. Now I prefer to stay in this lane a little bit longer. I'd much rather not have people directly in front of me. And the conditions really aren't too bad. I feel like I've got decent traction here. I'm not sliding around or being pushed around by the snow.
A common mistake many drivers will make is the assumption that because they can see the pavement, they must have traction. If we understand the concepts of black ice, what happens is our tires, which create heat due to the friction of the road surface, will melt the snow. In turn, the cold weather will refreeze it, and this happens over and over again. So the best way to know if you have traction or not is to test the surface with your brakes. Just tap your brakes slightly to see if your analog brakes are kicking in.
Here we can see the snow is starting to pile up a little bit more. I'm still not feeling any push. There I felt maybe a little bit. So it might be smart to get back into that right lane when there's an opportunity. Now there's a little bit of a pile between my tires right now. You can see that little pile of snow. So I'd like to try to find a spot where that's broken down a little bit. What do I see up ahead here? I see a curve off to the left. Now I know that's my opportunity typically to keep my wheels straight and change lanes, right? So let's go ahead and take advantage of that since we're not going any faster than these cars in front of us. I see a car coming up behind me, so I'm going to turn my signal on so he knows I want to leave this lane. Keep my wheels straight and slowly ease into the lane. That's such a good technique to use when you're changing lanes in slippery conditions. Now here I'm driving a vehicle that has a little bit of a wider stance than a typical car, and then the trailer I'm towing, the wheels stick out about a foot on each side. So honestly, trying to stay within the tracks of the cars in front of me isn't always as easy because my tires tend to go wider than what's available.
I cannot stress enough the importance of having good tires when it comes to driving in adverse weather. An okay winter tire will far exceed a good all-season tire. So if at all possible, please invest in winter tires, keeping in mind you can only use them during the winter months as the rubber compound is much softer that will wear down quickly during the summer months. Switching back and forth tires can be inconvenient. If you need to invest in a good all-season tire, talk to a good salesperson who understands the importance of driving in the snow and ice. Get the best all-season tire you can get. Hopefully we all understand the risks that overpasses and bridges create. They don't have the ground heat, they have cold air flowing underneath them, so they tend to freeze up very quickly. So what I'm doing in these situations is I'm not touching my brakes, but anytime I approach an overpass or a bridge, I let off my gas pedal and I coast over that surface, and then I resume with the gas pedal. This minimizes my risk of losing control. Now, it doesn't really matter your experience level. Driving in these conditions is still nerve-wracking. When you're dealing with other traffic, you're dealing with a road surface that doesn't always cater to what you want your car to do. That brings on a level of anxiety. Now, what we're trying to do is minimize that through practice and building experience. So what happens in these situations is a pile of snow or slush or just icy conditions or a change in the road surface ahead, corners, hills, things like that. That can cause your vehicle to get pushed out of its lane or out of the path that you prefer to be driving in. So what our job is to build an understanding of counter steer. So when the back end of the car starts to slide in one direction, we counter steer to correct that. Now that's an oversteer situation. An understeer situation is you're turning your wheels but your car is not responding to what you want it to do. So your front tires are sliding. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into these concepts. I do have a winter driver's training video, which is about 2 hours. It dives into all of these concepts, into traction control, into different maneuvers or practice options to build your understanding. I will put a note of that at the end of the video, so if that's something you want to dive deeper into.
Now we're going about almost 60 miles an hour, and for a lot of people that's like, whoa, why would you be going 60 miles an hour? Well, for two reasons. One, we are on the highway, and there's an expectation that our speed is up. Now the speed limit is 70. We're not going 70 miles an hour. But we can't be going 30 miles an hour just because we're nervous about driving in the snow, right? So it's important for us to maintain a speed that is comfortable, but still safe. And that's what we're doing. Now there's not a whole lot of traffic where I'm at right now, so that allows me to pick up my speed. The faster I go, the more momentum I have, so I do kind of push through this slush a little bit easier. So there are some advantages. When you're driving around vehicles, space management is so important. So in this particular situation, I've got plenty of space in front of me, plenty of space behind me, so I feel very safe that I only really have to worry about my maneuvers. How do I handle the current conditions? When there's traffic around you, then you also have to watch out for how other people handle the conditions. Some people like to brake excessively and frequently. Some people don't handle a slide very well. For example, I saw a car earlier today lose control and then smash into the median. Multiple cars in the ditch. So you know that there's a lot of drivers out there who are not competent with driving in these conditions. And those are the ones you're watching out for. So I feel much more safe in this setting where I don't really have any traffic to deal with. I'm just concerned about my own driving skills. Now you can tell already with the snow lightening up a little bit, the road, we're starting to see a little bit more black on the road. Now that doesn't necessarily mean the roads are providing more traction, because we're going to have some slush and ice underneath there. But it's nice that it's not building up. We're not seeing consistent buildup of snow. Our exit is coming up here, which is good. We're hoping to see a decrease in precipitation and hopefully better roads here as we start heading west. Now, as I said before, turns, anytime you have to turn your vehicle in low traction situations, you run a higher risk of losing control of the vehicle. So what I'm going to do is manage this turn extremely slow. Notice how I'm going to take the inside lane. Now I've checked my mirrors and there is no traffic around me. So if I start to slide, I'm going to do an understeer, right? If I start to slide, my front tires are likely to lose traction. It's going to push me to the outside lane. Well, in this particular situation, I have an entire lane to work with. So if I started to slide, it gives me an entire lane. I'll cross out of my lane into the right lane, and that should give me extra time to decrease my speed enough to regain control of my car. Okay, so good planning ahead. If I was in the outside lane, all I have is the shoulder to work with, and that may not give you enough space. So now that I'm out of this area, I'm going to switch over to the right lane, nice and slow. I hardly turn the wheel at all. Okay, it's like millimeters of turn in order to minimize any weight transfer of the vehicle. So now we can see the roads are getting more clear. Obviously they've sanded or salted this area pretty well. The snow is less here. But that doesn't mean we can let our guard down, right? We're still very aware of what's going on. I can still feel that slush. Even though it's a thin layer, I can still feel it underneath my tires. And when we're talking about that feeling, that's our connection to our car. If you pay attention to your car in normal driving conditions, you will definitely be more aware when driving conditions are not normal. And I've driven this van for 40,000 miles. I know what it feels like on clear dry pavement with lots of traction. I know what it feels like on wet pavement. I know what it feels like in slippery conditions. So that connection I have with the road, I can just feel it through the wheel. So it's very important that we pay attention to that. And each car feels a little bit different. They have different balance to them, different weight distribution to each tire, higher center of gravity, lower center of gravity, front wheel, rear wheel drive, the types of tires you have on. There's so many variables that can come into play when it comes to traction and how your car is interacting with the road. So the conditions are looking a little bit better. I did see a plow out, so they may have been sanding this or salting this area. But let's still take it nice and easy here. Remember, bridges freeze first. So I'm never going to be on my gas pedal across the bridge. I'm going to slowly let off the gas. I don't want to be in a position for my tires to spin. Now, though this kind of driving requires constant focus and attention, that doesn't mean we can have tunnel vision. We still need to be checking our mirrors. We have risks of people coming up on our left side right now trying to pass us, who very well could lose control. Their car bumps into our car, which causes our car to lose control, and in essence we end up in an accident. So we are still being concerned about that. As I see an exit ramp, I know there's an entrance ramp coming. Crossing another bridge, I let off the gas, keep my wheel nice and straight. I see the entrance ramp coming up. I don't see any cars approaching, which is good. I don't need to worry about changing lanes or adjusting my speed.
Well, to conclude this video, I did make it to my destination. It did add about 45 minutes to that drive, which is expected under the conditions that we were driving in. The van responded pretty well. Being a front-wheel drive and a little bit light on the back and towing something, I was very surprised with how well it handled. Would I have preferred to have four-wheel drive? Most definitely. Would I prefer not to be towing something? Yes. But this just goes to show you that driving on the highway in snow and ice is not something we need to have high anxiety over, but we do need to make smart decisions and be patient and recognize there will be delays and we are interacting with other road users. Hopefully you gained something from this video. This is a very basic video on winter driving, highway driving. I do have the full DVD that we put together, my school put together, and this DVD covers all aspects of driving, talking about the differences between winter tires and summer tires, and traction laws and traction control and anti-lock brake systems, accident avoidance systems, all of the features that are in the modern car and how they affect us during winter driving. So I would encourage you to purchase this DVD. One benefit, and I don't want this to be the reason you purchase it, but you do get an insurance discount. I get about $37 a year off of my insurance for having completed this course. So it will pay for itself within the first year. And if you have a spouse or children that drive, it would further increase that discount. Any questions along the way, you can always contact me through my website, enhanceddrivinginstitute.com, and we'll keep the training videos coming. Thank you.